Conner Weigman needs to stack great performances with his play against Mississippi State.
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into Locked On Aggies. I am your host, Andrew Stefaniak. Thanks for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every single day. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm coming to you live from beautiful Birmingham, Alabama, ready to talk a little bit about Conner Weigman and why he needs to play well against Mississippi State. Because against Missouri, Weigman, coming off his injury, was absolutely electric. Then you have the bye week. And I think the trap that we don't want to fall for as Texas A&M fans, and I don't want to fall for, is overjudging one performance. Now, one thing I'm really excited to do is talk about some quotes from Conner Weigman here in segment 2. He talked to the media yesterday. And I'll tell you this. It's kind of like that Harbaugh quote, I just love people who love football. If someone doesn't love football, Conner Weigman loves football. And I respect that about him. And we're going to get into more what I mean by that when we get to his quotes. But, after the Notre Dame game, once again, I said, hey, after Conner Weigman's play against Missouri, I started my next show with, listen, I owe Conner Weigman an apology. And I do. I think we all do. Really, everybody that it's clear to me that while Marcel Reed has a bright future, there's no question there. If the offense can run like it did with Weigman against Missouri, against the rest of the season, then he's the quarterback for this team. While Marcel Reed works on those accuracy issues, because Marcel Reed's legs are great, but Conner Weigman's a better passer. And at the end of the day, Conner Weigman is not quite as fast as Marcel Reed, but he can still move, and we proved that against Missouri. The point is, I think the upside from Weigman can help you better because of the passing and his ability to run. And I was questioning that for a while, and I believe I was wrong. But this is my argument on today's show. He needs to prove it. He needs to stack good games, because we could be doing the same thing. Maybe Conner Weigman comes back down to earth and has a really poor game. Obviously, I don't believe that's going to happen. We're all hoping that doesn't happen, but maybe he comes back down to earth and has a game against Mississippi State, and then we all go, oh, darn. There's high highs and low lows in being a football fan. I think we all know that. But what I'm saying is, I want Conner Weigman to prove it one more time. I want to see him one more time go out there and play a really, really solid, competitive football game and put up good numbers. And once again, what he did against Missouri, where every pass was on the money. He made great decisions to win a run. It's going to be hard to play like that again. That was a great game. Not saying he can, not saying he won't, but I'm saying it won't be easy to play like that again. So we just need to see Conner Weigman stack solid performances in this game. Not asking for the same thing, asking for a performance where you're happy. I want to see him a good completion percentage, take care of the football, maybe score some touchdowns through the air, and push the ball downfield. We've talked about it. We talked about it on yesterday's episode of Locked On Aggies, as you everydayers would remember. And it was this Mississippi State defense can be beaten vertically, can be beaten in the passing game. Now, Texas A&M is still going to want to run the football, and they're going to run the football. But I think this might be a game where Coach Klein kind of opens the gates a little bit and sees if Conner Weigman can really push that ball down the field. And I believe, obviously, he can. We know that. So this is a ball game. That's the number one thing. So what we're talking about on today's show, really to start the show here, is 5 players that need to play well in this game for the Aggies. The first being Conner Weigman. But I think he's the most important, not only because he's the quarterback and you need good quarterback play to win football games, especially on the road, but if he has another game and proves to us, yeah, guys, Notre Dame was a fluke. I played bad. I'm better than this. I'm bought in. But that's the thing is I'm scared that we're going to get too much on this hype train. And then what if Weigman has a bad game? And we go, oh, man. And then next week's conversation is, should you go back to Marcel Reed? No one wants that to happen. What we want to happen is one quarterback to take over as the guy. And I think right now the guy that you want, and once again, nobody call me I'm trying to think of a word, but yes, last week before I saw the way Conner Weigman played, I was on the let's stick with Marcel Reed hype train. Y'all know I tell it how it is. If I think I was wrong about something I said, I'll tell you. And the reason I changed so quickly is because the offense, when it looks that good, I think will look better under Conner Weigman than it will Marcel Reed until Marcel Reed just gets a little bit more dialed when it comes to passing the football. And I believe he's the future of this program, and that's going to come. I just think it might take a little bit of time for him to get that figured out. It's part of the growing pains of being a young quarterback in this tough conference. But that is the number one player that I think matters the most in this game is Conner Weigman. I want to see him pass the football accurately. I want to see him push the ball down the field. I want to see him make good decisions. I want to see him take care of the football. And if he does all that, Texas A&M should have no trouble winning a road game against the Mississippi State Bulldogs and moving the Aggies on and keeping yourself in a position to make the college football playoffs. So that is why you want to see Conner Weigman play well in this game. Another player that, and it's kind of the same principle here that I want to see play well in this game is Texas A&M wide receiver Noah Thomas. He's got 252 yards on the season. He's had two solid games in a row. Against Arkansas, he goes 6 catches, 109 yards, and a touchdown. Against Missouri, he goes 3 catches for 65 yards. And, my thoughts here on Noah Thomas are this, and they're pretty simple. It's, that Missouri game, first of all, I think he has a better game if the script didn't get so, if the game I bet he gets to 100 yards if this game stays a little bit closer and you needed to kind of air it out. Or even like if Le'Veon Moss doesn't bust that first touchdown right out of the half. Like I think things like that, change the game script. It's like a fantasy football player when a team is killing you, except for Jared Goff, who my buddy Cam Boff killed me this week because Dan Campbell decided to just absolutely keep putting it to the Cowboys. So thanks for that, Jared Goff. And that's the only time a game script. Dan Campbell's the only one that doesn't care about game script. So, I want to see, and continue to talk about stack. You've proven in 2 games in a row you can be effective and you can help this team. Let's make it 3 for Noah Thomas. And like I said, I have a feeling that Coach Klein might try and get a little bit more vertical than normal in this game. And what do I mean by that? I mean, on the season against Missouri, you throw the football 22 times. Weigman goes 18 for 22 against Arkansas. Marcel Reed throws it 22 times. Against Florida, you see Marcel Reed throw it 17 times. And then against Notre Dame, you see Conner Weigman throw it 30 times. Now, that was the game he didn't play well. Could you see them get to 25, 26 passing attempts in this game? That's kind of what I'm saying is I think you could see 2 or 3 or 4 more passing attempts in this game. And hey, if Conner Weigman's as accurate as he was on 2 Saturdays ago against Missouri, 4 passing attempts could add another 40, 50, 60 yards offense for this team. So I think that I'd love to see Noah Thomas play well again because we want him to prove I'm not a fluke. I'm not a guy who had a couple solid weeks, and then I'm going to go back to my 2 catches for 9 yards thing. We want to see Noah Thomas stack really, really good showings, and I believe he's going to do that. So Noah Thomas is the next guy on my list that I want to see play well in this football game, and I think needs to play well because while you can beat Mississippi State with the run, the passing attacks where they've kind of gotten killed for the most part. They've had a couple games where the running games killed them. But I think you're going to see this team still be balanced. But I think you're going to see, first of all, I think they're going to run a lot of plays because I think they're going to score a lot of points. But I think you're going to see a lot of passing attempts, a lot of running attempts. And I think that Noah Thomas is going to be the beneficiary of those extra passing attempts. We're going to talk a little bit about the other three players. One's a position group, and we'll talk about that. We'll have that conversation and then hear some quotes from Coach Elko and Texas A&M quarterback Conner Weigman coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at Roy. Hey, Locked On Aggies fans, it's time to recognize the Roy Player of the Week. So far this season, we've pulled over $10,000 to support players on Roy. Micro deposits lead to massive change. With the Roy app, you can direct your support to athletes you love, ensuring that all funds go to specific player you choose. Unlike collectives, you know exactly where your support is going, and you'll even receive exclusive content like personal videos and updates after the season. The best part, it's risk-free. If the athlete transfers or doesn't deliver the content, you get your money back. This week, with A&M on bye, I believe the player of the week is Kyron Lacey of LSU. Had a really, really good game in their win over Ole Miss. What I love about Roy, ladies and gentlemen, is how you can, we talk about NIL and what that means nowadays is you are giving money to a collective and you don't know where that's going. With this, you can give straight to your favorite players and then you're going to get some personal videos and stuff back. I love it. Roy, support the players, change the game. So the next player that needs to show up and play well isn't a player at all. It's a group, and it is the secondary. I'm going to go ahead and spoil, because we're in segment 2 now, and this is part of what we're going to talk about here in segment 2, is some quotes from Coach Elko. And the first thing that I want to talk about is what he had to say about the downfield passing game. And I'm looking for this quote here, but basically, Coach Elko in this quote, and I'll keep looking for it. I like them all. But Mississippi State, especially with Van Buren at quarterback, has proven that they can push the football down the field. And that is, and so like he says this about Van Buren, his really big arm, he showed that their ability to, here it is, their ability to stretch the field is probably the most impressive thing. The explosive passing game is really, really scary. So, and one thing about Coach Elko is I don't think any of this is gamesmanship. I think he's genuinely like, okay, hey, they can push the ball downfield through the air, and we need to be ready for this. We need to be ready to attack this, and we need to be ready and stop them in any way possible when it comes to the downfield passing attack. So I am, without question, paying attention to the passing attack of Mississippi State and Van Buren. And that's why the secondary, Will the Blanket Lee, and the secondary from top to bottom needs to show up in this game. Mississippi State's going to try and run the ball a little bit, but they want to push it downfield. I mean, like, let's look at some of these numbers on the year so far for Mississippi State. So like last week against Georgia, they had 306 passing yards to 79 rushing yards. They ran the football 26 times compared to 37 passing attempts. Now, game script is a big part of it, but Mississippi State has been in a negative game script pretty much all game long. So they pass it 23 times against Mississippi State, and they run it 50 times against Texas. So what I'm kind of getting at here is I think it's going to be game script based. It's interesting to me there that even they were kind of down in that Texas game. And I know it was for a little while, it was, I wouldn't say interesting, but not blown open yet. But they stuck to the run there. And it could have been, hey, we're getting Van Buren kind of dialed into what he's going to be doing here. And he's kind of settling in, and it's probably a tough place to win playing Texas on the road. But yeah, they're going to run the ball is what I'm saying. I'm not saying they're going to run it 8 times. They're going to run it, I'd say, between 20 and 30 times. Maybe if they're having success, a little bit past that. But what I'm definitely paying attention to is how the secondary is able to slow/stop the Mississippi State passing attack, because that is going to be a massive key to this football game. Can you stop their passing attack? If you can stop their passing attack, I think you're going to win this football game, and it won't be much of a problem. The next name I have here is Nick Scorton. Once again, another guy coming off an absolute heck of a performance against Missouri. In that football game, Nick Scorton had, let me give you the exact number here. Nick Scorton had 3 tackles, 1.5 sacks, 2.5 tackles for loss. I mean, can you ask for more? He was living like he had property in the Missouri backfield. He he rents it out. Sometimes it's an Airbnb, but that day he was home and he was creating havoc in the Missouri backfield. And knowing that we you got a young quarterback in Van Buren from Mississippi State, you have a offense is probably going to want to try once again, coming off what we just discussed. They're going to try and pass the ball a little bit, and try and push it downfield a little bit. You're going to really want Nick Scorton to create havoc in the backfield all game long. Make it really hard on this young quarterback to get things going. Make it hard on this young quarterback to, figure all these things out. That is what you need to see here. So that's kind of what I'm paying attention to when it comes to Nick Scorton. That's what I'm paying attention to when it comes to this entire pass rush. We're not just talking about Nick Scorton. I mean, it's the whole pass rush. Obviously, Nick Scorton's the guy you think of when you think of the pass rush for Texas A&M, but you want the entire pass rush to play well. And the next name I'd like to see play well is, and I just have literally this written down, a second wide receiver. So it's kind of been a rotating door at wide receiver, even at times with Noah Thomas. I mean, is it Cyrus Allen? Is it Terry Bussey like it was a little bit against Missouri? Is it Janae Walker? I mean, is it Jabri Barber? Who is it going to be? Who's going to be that second wide receiver? I believe Noah Thomas is here to stay. I believe he's gonna be really good the rest of the year. I think he's really settling in to his role and who he is as a player. The question is, will he continue to improve? Will he continue to get better? And the other question for this passing attack is, will another wide receiver step up and be really, really good? And that's something we need to pay attention to. So whoever it is, Terry Bussey, Janae Walker, I don't care who it is, someone needs to step up the rest of this year for this offense. So hopefully that, step one to that can happen in this game against Mississippi State. So those are the 5 players for Texas A&M that I think needs to play well. Obviously, some's kind of position groups. So you get what I'm saying here. The next thing we're going to talk about is some quotes from Coach Elko and some quotes from Conner Weigman. So I loved this. And speaking of wide receivers, Coach Elko had this to say. He said that the Texas A&M wide receivers are the most improved position group to this point in the season. Love hearing that because, this offseason, I was a little bit concerned about wide receiver. If y'all remember that, not the concern was more how many guys do you got, and I think it's worked out well. I loved this. Coach Elko said, I can't tell you I watched it like an avid fan. I watched it like a half-interested guy on his day off talking about watching football on Saturday. That's funny, which is good. Good for Coach Elko. It's your bye week. Have some fun. Spend time with friends and family. And, I get it. That's kind of funny though. Because, for him, it's like for us, we go to work all week and we do this all week. And then we come home, we want to watch football. For Coach Elko, he does football all week. I'm sure maybe he wanted to golf or fish or something. I get it. Coach Elko said, we're continuing to get stronger throughout the season. That's a testament to Coach Moffitt and how they train in the weight room, but it's also a product of how we practice, how the players manage themselves and their days off. That plays a role. I mean, that stuff matters so much. We talked about this offseason, how much Tommy Moffitt is going to mean to this team. And I think quotes like this show you why. The next thing I have here is Coach Elko talking about turnover margin. He says, it's really important in our program, and our kids are starting to understand the value of protecting the football and attacking the football. Turnover margin has been something that has helped Texas A&M a lot so far this season. And it's something, and it's the cliche key to victory every week here. Hey, win the turnover battle, have a good turnover margin. But it matters. You have to have a good turnover margin, or you're going to lose football games. And that's why it's so important. And then he obviously, and this is funny, Texas tweeted this out. He knocked on wood after talking about the how good the turnover margin has been at this point this season. And then I talked about the quote from Coach Elko about Van Buren, and that was okay. This is an interesting one. I want to talk about this, and then we're going to get to Conor Weigman quotes. It's about the fake injuries. We know where that lies. We're not going to name names. It says, do we condone faking injuries? No, at times. No, at times it was a kid having to stop the game because there was no other way to stop the game, not necessarily because we were giving ourselves an advantage. Elko said defensive players are at risk by how fast college offenses operate now, but defenders faking injuries is not the solution, and it's a bad look for the game. I completely agree. Not a fan of that, and we know who we are on that one. We have a few more quotes from Conor Weigman, and then I want to talk about this line and will the Aggies cover it? That's going to be the conversations coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com to get started. So my next couple of quotes here from Conor Weigman, I really, really like, is him just talking about how much he loves football. So I love this quote from Conor Weigman. I lost it, but it's talking about criticism. He says, "It is what it is. It's what we signed up for playing in the SEC. I love the game of football, and we're going to go out there every day and play as hard as we can for our brothers." Anybody that's played, and I'm not saying you have to have played a competitive sport to understand this because it's not true, but when you've played a competitive sport, criticism is part of it. I mean, I played baseball in college, and there's a lot. There's a lot, ladies and gentlemen, where it goes into it. Now, I was not playing at the SEC, but a lot goes into it. And I had some bad years, I had some good years, and there's ups and downs, and it's tough on you mentally. And Conor Weigman, that's why I really try and never, if I'm ever going to have to bash a player, I try to do it as respectfully as possible. I'm not the guy that's come out here and be like, this guy blows, this guy's awful, this guy's terrible. I'm going to be the person who comes out here and says, hey, they're just not, they didn't have a good showing. They didn't play well in this game. That's kind of going to be my take on it. And so that's why I always try and, if I'm going to criticize a player, you got to do it respectfully as possible. And, but some people aren't going to do that with Conor Weigman. And I respect the heck out of what he's saying here about the way, I respect the way he's handling criticism because it matters. It's part of the mental health of Division I players. And, it's important. And I respect that quote. I also love what he has to say here about Marcel Reed. He said, "That's my brother. I love him to death. We're in the quarterback room together every single day for the last 2 years. It's a really cool thing to see that it's a really cool thing that we've got going on, and it doesn't happen everywhere. We're really blessed to have that relationship." And I've noticed that from Marcel Reed, just the way he was interacting on social media and stuff after Weigman took back over and talking about beating Missouri. Being competitive but still realizing, hey, that's my brother, that's my teammate, that's my guy, is a big part of the respect factor of playing Division I football. And I love that from both Marcel Reed and Conor Weigman. They're teammates, they're brothers, they're buddies for life. And, in the same room every single day, learning the same thing, doing the same thing. And yes, there's competition there, and Marcel Reed wants to start, Conor Weigman wants to start, but they're still going to have a level of respect and love for one another. And that's just something I really love about these two. Conor Weigman went on to say this. He said, "Not being able to play a football game is always tough because I like being about out there with my brothers and having their backs. Not playing football sucks." Weigman says he's back to 100%. Being back to feeling good is finally a good feeling. Seriously, and it's what I talked about, the whole Harbaugh quote. I like people who like football. Conor Weigman likes football. He wants to play football. He only ever wants to be out there playing football. When he has to miss a game, it makes him, visibly ill. And I love that about him. I have so much respect for Conor Weigman. The line is 15.5 points. And, I'll tell you what, that's a really interesting line. If it was 13.5, I would love it because I think the Aggies for sure win by 2 touchdowns. 15.5 is where it gets scary because that means you got to win by 2 touchdowns and a field goal, or there's, obviously other combinations, but you get what I'm saying. It's, and so it's definitely a scary line to me. I believe the Aggies cover at the moment, but I do have a feeling this game is going to be, I think Texas A&M wins, but I've got a feeling it's going to be scary. So check back in with me at the end of the week when it comes to will Texas A&M cover 15.5. And then let me know in the YouTube comments, do you believe Texas A&M will cover 15.5 points in this football game? That is going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Aggies. I am here in Birmingham, Alabama, once again at SEC basketball tip-off with Media Day. And I will have some stuff coming from here. We'll hear from Buzz, hear from some players. So be ready for that. Hope everyone has a great rest of their day today, and we will see you tomorrow right here on Locked On Aggies.